every minute that the Lord gives us here with students. So what I want to do today, I want to take an opportunity to speak to you about something that I'm very passionate about when it comes to student ministry. Something that I think is a battle that some people are scared to wage or maybe overwhelmed to endeavor after, and that is the battle of teen culture. Pardon me. The battle of teen culture, because as you, I'm sure, know, our students are in a battle every day that they don't even realize, because the world that they are being raised up in, that they are being grown up in and taught and conditioned by is really, really messed up. It's hard enough, as I'm sure you've experienced, to get students to come and hang out on Sunday or Wednesday whenever you might have your youth functions. And it's tough because we battle things like busyness and schedules and school and homework, and one of my favorites, parents grounding students from coming to youth group because that's punishment, and I think that's crazy. But we also battle a lot of behind the scenes things that we don't recognize all the time, and that parents especially don't recognize. And so what I want to do for you today is I want to give you a little view into what that looks like, a little view into some of that battle, and how we can train ourselves, how you can be trained, how we can continue to grow, and how also we can train parents to wage this battle against what is American teen culture today. One of the major issues that we fight is that we have a losing battle that we're fighting with the likes of Miley Cyrus and Juicy J, who's a rapper if you don't know, and Lil Boozy, who is my favorite rapper to say because I think his name is fun. And TV shows like Awkward and Teen Wolf, and even more so than that, just the over-sexualization of our culture. Our students consistently have things thrown at them that say, your body must look like this. You must desire people who do these things, and this is what beauty is. This is how sex works. This is how relationships work. And the problem is that we, as the church, get a little too scared to approach those things because it's not real clean. It's not real easy. It's really, really messy. And I'll be honest, guys, it's overwhelming. It really is. And so if you feel that way, I don't want you to think you're alone, because what we need to do is come together and fight this battle together. I was actually had a really very palpable view of this a couple weeks ago. I was putting a graphic together for our summer end of school bash, because when you're in youth ministry, you have a party, you call it whatever it is. Bash is what I'm learning. That's just kind of how you title things. Parties aren't good anymore. It's the bash. So we're having our end of school bash actually next week, and I was putting a graphic together, and I just looked up sunglasses on a beach, and I've got Google Safe Search and all that kind of stuff on my computer, and the things that came up just in a Google Safe Search environment were unbelievable. Where if my senior pastor walked in behind me and saw some of the things on the screen, I'd have to explain myself, like no nudity or anything, but just sketchy sexualized stuff that is not beneficial to have in front of you. On a Google search for beach sunglasses or sunglasses on a beach. Everything. Now this is again with Google search on. I'm a grown married man in a church work environment who's extra safe. And looking up something that simple brought sinful stuff to my eyes. And so how are we supposed to fight this battle if what our students are seeing, and they're probably not searching innocent things like beach sunglasses all the time, how are we supposed to fight that together so that we can help these kids, these students, these young people who are growing up in this culture fight the battle and win? It's a tough fight. I'm also a big football fan, and I'm sure many of you guys have heard the rage over Michael Sam, a 7th round draft pick from Missouri who is the first openly gay NFL player to be drafted. I've never seen such a circus around a 7th round draft pick in my life. But again, that's the culture our students are being raised in. It is that there is no absolute truth. That to call someone's choice, or whatever you want to say that is, to call someone's perspective on life sinful or not good or not okay, is to be ignorant and a bigot. And these terms are thrown at us as ministers and as Christians to make us look bad, because absolute truth doesn't exist in our teen culture. Now it exists, I'm not saying that, but in the minds of what our students are fighting through, of the things they're watching, the things they're listening to, it doesn't exist because that's not our right to speak on. It's not okay to do that. We're judgmental. And again, we're in a battle. Now, with that lack of absolute truth, what we're finding is that the gospel, in turn, is being watered down. So you have absolute truth that we as Christians say, this is right, this is wrong, this is who Jesus is, this is what Jesus says. Jesus is the way, the truth, the life. That has been watered down as to not offend people. And that is being brought into churches as the gospel. And it's watering down our culture. It's making our teens, when they go to fight for Christ, it's making them not have a strong foundation to stand on because all they've heard is this false gospel that as long as we love each other and don't judge each other, as long as we're not standing firm for a truth, that everything will be okay. And that's the way that we're supposed to treat each other. Now, I don't want to misconstrue this. We are to treat each other with love. And I think the only way to get through to these guys, this teen culture, is to treat it with love. But we're missing the gospel. And our churches are becoming places where we've said, for the sake of not offending people, we'll teach a very safe, palatable gospel. And that is coming into our teenagers. And if we don't stand firm and fight that ferociously, we're going to lose our teens. We're going to lose the future of our church. Because the watering down of the gospel and the teaching of that watered down gospel is leading churches to not properly train their people. And so this day, this seminar, this deal that you are at today is to help train you in how to do that. And I think for what I believe is that our culture is really screwing that up. We're allowing students to fall victim to what MTV and the internet and social media is telling them they're supposed to look like, act like, be like, feel like. And it's a hard, hard battle. And if we don't take a strong stance for it, we're going to miss it. And so what comes with that, with this idea that Jesus just loves us and that, there's no absolute truth, it comes to this relativism where we teach a watered down gospel, and our churches, because of that, become self-focused. If you talk to most teenagers on the street and you ask them, tell me about God, you're going to hear about things how God works for them. That's the culture that you're in, and you might not agree with that, and if you don't, okay. But all the studies that we're reading, everything that's coming out about teen culture, about church culture in America, why teens are leaving the church when they go to college, is because they have a shallow view of God, and because here they go, well, God exists to serve me. God exists to move the way I want him to. God does this for me, instead of going, here's who God is. God is God and I am not. And when we put ourselves on the throne of who God is, we make the rules. And that, again, goes back to absolute truth falling and a watered-down gospel and people not really knowing Jesus. And so they're leaving the church. They're leaving the faith. And we're losing that battle because we aren't taking a hard enough stance. And that's tough. And so that's leading to churches that are self-focused. And what happens is that we end up making ourselves gods, like I said, but we realize really soon that we're really lousy at being God. Not that it's a Christian movie whatsoever, but I love this picture that the movie Bruce Almighty actually puts out with Jim Carrey as the main character when he goes and he takes over for God for a couple days. And he loses his mind and he finally comes to the realization that, like, hey, God, I don't want this job. I'm not God. Thank goodness you are. Because we realize quickly we make lousy gods. And if our life is about what God does for us instead of what God has done and who he is, then we come to this place where our culture and everything in it serves us. And that falls short every single time. And when absolute truth no longer exists, when what is in God's word is no longer perfect, then we lose this battle because we're letting our teenagers instead let culture dictate them instead of letting them have a biblical view of who God is and who God says they are. So what happens through there? I'm going to follow that train of thought here. Students, get that. They go to churches that have big lights, and if you have lights, no problem. You can see we have lights here. But they go to churches that are self-focused and watered down gospel, and then eventually something doesn't sit right with them. And they go in church, and eventually the hype doesn't match up anymore. The excitement levels fall down because last week was the best week ever. Now this is the best week ever. And now next week will be the best week ever. And man, I'm so excited about this week. But then the next series is going to be great. And then eventually you can't top yourself anymore. And our students are going to church and they're finding out like, hey, this is a whole lot of hype and not a lot of substance. And so they get bored. They see through the bullcrap. If I can use that word, sorry Baptists, just kidding. They see through that, and the one thing that they think should be genuine isn't, and that is the church. And so then we fill our schedules to stay busy so we feel better. Our prayer lives fall apart, and we teach them to pray prayers that are very textbook. We say read 3 verses and chew on that for the 5 minutes on your way to work. And then eventually our lack of identity, or our identity in Christ, goes away. Our sustainment in Jesus falls apart. And we end up being controlled by our need for acceptance from other people instead of our identity in who God says we are. And guys, let me tell you, our students who are still forming an identity are being eaten up by the world because they don't know who God says they are. Oh, and then there's this. They find that identity by little pictures on Instagram and by Twitter statuses and by keeping their heads on their phones, because if we're here, then we don't have to be here. And so you know what falls apart then? All because of this one battle of teen culture, this lack of absolute truth brings us to a place where now community is here and this is gone. And so things like going to church, being a part of a community, putting priority in community with people, evangelizing, communicating with others, all goes away because we have everything we need on our little phone. And then we get addicted to that. And guys, I know you see your students like this. I know you see it because it's everywhere. Maybe you deal with it. I know I have before. So what do our students do? They take Instagram pictures of their best looking meals. They take selfies over and over and over again to portray the best look that they have with angles that are here so they look thinner. And it's become a disease in our church where the culture now dictates that you have to look this way, you have to act this way, you have to wear these clothes, you have to whatever the blank is. And when our students don't meet up to it because the standards are unrealistic, everything falls apart and we lose our students to the culture of America, to the messed up, sinful culture that is destroying the church. That might seem extreme, but I think that it only sounds extreme because nobody's really standing up against it. And that's tough. There's actually a kid in the UK a couple weeks ago who was addicted to taking selfies. This is a true story. Addicted to taking selfies, would take up to 2,000 a day. 2,000. And one day, he was, I guess, obsessed with having the perfect photo. One day he couldn't get the perfect selfie after trying 2,500 times. And this is sobering, but it's true. He committed suicide because he couldn't get a good enough photo of himself. And we go, wow, that's incredible. That's so sad. Yes, that's an extreme case, but we're not far off from that. That's a sobering thought. And things like that are what make these battles so important to fight. Stephen Furtick said something great that I hope you can use this in your own talks with your students about identity or whatever it is. And he said the issue with social media, the issue with our culture is that we're comparing our lives, which we know the depths of our depravity. We're comparing our lives to the lives we see on people's social media, their Instagrams, their Twitters, their Facebooks. And what we don't realize in that comparison is that those are people's highlight reels. And we're comparing our own lives and our own identities to that, going, why don't I look like that? Why don't I eat food like that? Why don't I shop here? And so what that does is it causes immense insecurity because, again, no truth is absolute. We water down the gospel. We forget who God says we are. And when all of that happens and we compare ourselves to what we think our lives should look like, which is inadvertently someone else's highlight reel, everything falls apart. And the two things it stems from is this. We want to portray an ideal lifestyle. And the second is we want to be seen as desirable because we're obsessed with pleasing man. And that's what our culture has taught our students, is that it is not about pleasing God. It's about being desirable to people, even to a point when you'll make bad decisions in what you wear, how you act, the things you do, the parties you go to. And it's all about being desirable to man instead of pleasing God. And that leads to two places. The first is the need to control everything. We are control freaks. Amen? I'm guessing someone said amen there. I don't know. There you go. I got one. And more from you, hopefully. The need to control everything, which is insecurity, and an addiction to social media. An addiction to the vehicle that gets us that seemingly secure feeling. So biblically, what's our answer? This is where all this is leading to. Biblically, what is our answer? First, we should teach our students in our teen culture that we should strive to not be controlled by anything. Anything. And that might sting for you personally. I don't know. I know for me, I had to put my phone down when I got home because my wife finally said, "You're always on your phone. Put it away." So that worked out pretty quick. I put my phone away. That might sting. And some of you guys, I know I did, will say, well, I'm on this social media because my teenagers are here. I've got to have my phone always on for text messaging because my teenagers are here. It's not like it used to be when text messaging came out when I was like 17, 18, maybe 20, where people sent text when they absolutely needed something. Now texting is how you have conversation all the time. And so that doesn't ever stop unless you stop it. And unless you encourage your students to put their phone down and stop for a minute. And that's hard. It's real hard. So, biblically then, what is our answer? With all of that stuff that we've talked about with teen culture, what is our answer? Where do we go from this point? First, we should strive that nothing should control us. And this is how we even speak this into students so that they understand this as well, is that strive that nothing should control you. And Paul speaks about that very clearly. And this, what I'm going to say, might sting for some of us because it stung for me as well. So let me just say this. Some of us sometimes will validate our own social media issues and addiction and all those other things to, well, my teenagers are on it, so I need to be on it. I can't get off Twitter or Facebook, or I have to download Snapchat or Kick because that's where my students are. And what I want to tell you is this: no, you don't. Now, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Twitter, but we can't let it own us. And our students don't get that. And part of fighting this battle against their culture is us understanding how to not have that control us as well. And that's hard. It's really hard. The reality of it is this: we are maybe not as much, but are overconnected as well. We're controlled by the need to know. We can't wait for things to come up because we have to know immediately. And for our students, it's even worse. If they don't have the lifeline of connectivity, then they literally stress and get anxious about it. It's crazy. I had a couple students. We went to New Orleans on a trip. No, I'm sorry, this wasn't New Orleans. This is a summer trip with my last church, and we told them no cell phones. And I had a student who literally gave me her cell phone and began almost having an anxiety attack because she couldn't let go of her phone because that was her lifeline, her lifeblood. Addiction, the teen culture that we're fighting, is that all of that junk, that failure of absolute truth, is all coming from a need to appease man instead of God. It's scary. It's dangerous. Now, some of you guys might fight me. You're probably fighting me in your mind right now, and that's totally fine. And you might be saying, well, if there's nothing wrong with sports, there's nothing wrong with ESPN or wanting to make a pretty decoration on Pinterest or Etsy, and the brownie in the mug still tasted awesome, even though it looked like a black plague in a cup because it really didn't come out the way it was supposed to. And I would agree with you that those aren't all bad things. It helps you keep up. I agree with you, but it can be destructive to your students when we let them be controlled by the desire to be loved, or to not even be loved, but to seek approval from all these other avenues and students and mainstream media. And it's scary because we don't want to look bad. We don't want bad press. Because our approval from man is so deep-seated in our theology of how we view God that our students are losing that battle every day, and that they're beginning to put more importance on who people say they are instead of who God says they are. That's the battle that we're losing in teen culture today, in our churches, in our pews, on our couches as we have here. Again, I'll say this, I love sports. I love the connectivity. I watch the NFL draft. I have an app on my phone that lets me listen to the Indians. I'm a big Cleveland fan. Cleveland Indians games when I drive home, or I can actually watch the game. I did that while I was shopping with my wife, which, say what you will, I don't do women's clothing stores very well. And I get it, and I love brownies and mugs and those things as well. But here's what we have to understand is that we can't be controlled by that either. We can't be controlled by that need to know immediately. Because then we don't know how to tell our students to beat it. So let's look at 1 Corinthians 6:12. I just want to throw this out real quickly and we're going to finish up. It says, everything is permissible for me, but not everything is beneficial. Everything is permissible for me, but I will not be mastered by anything. Now, the context to be served here is that Paul is writing to the church in Corinth about freedom in Christ, and that just because we have freedom doesn't mean it's okay to be under the power of any other forces. That freedom doesn't allow us to be controlled by other things. And he's telling the church in Corinth this, and I would offer this to you within that context. This is what I would offer to you. Social media, connectivity, technology, those things are useful. They can be beneficial. Use Twitter for your ministry. Use it to get word out about what you're doing, to garner excitement. Do those things. But if we can't put it down, we can't help these students fight this battle either. And so even this build that we've had from Miley Cyrus to lack of identity to where we are now comes from we as leaders have to be able to show them the route out of this addiction, out of this desire to please man, out of this consistent battle that we're not good enough. We have to be able to do that. And the only way to do that, you can only lead them as far as you're leading yourself. And that is tough. And let me tell you, I have had to learn that. I'm still learning that. Because it's tough. So whenever we come to that understanding, there's only one route to take. It's how do we fix it where we can't put it down, where I would offer to you it becomes sinful. What do we do? Here's some practical steps you can take, you can give to your students to take, and that we can hopefully fight this battle together. The first is this: take a break from social media. I can't tell you how incredible it's been to put my phone down and say, hey, I'm off social media for a week. I'm going on vacation or a staycation or maybe just staying at home, and I'm not going to be on it. And the amount of freedom you have, and that your students, you have to probably force them to do this, but that your students will experience. When we took our students' phones, when we went on our mission trip to New Orleans, we took their phones for 5 days. And at the end of the trip, they were going, oh my gosh, it was so incredible not to have that. Because here's what happens. With the lack of having cell phones comes the lack of having social media, comes the lack of a need to present yourself as this perfect person, and then a lack of the ability to measure yourself up with other people, which comes from a lack of then finding self-identity in what people say, which now leads people to understand better who God has called them to be, which brings them to a better understanding of who God says He is, which brings them to a deeper understanding of absolute truth, which brings them into a deeper relationship with the Lord Jesus, which is what this is all about. Even from a little thing like hitting this head on and not having them use their cell phones for 5 days, that's what we discovered in 5 days in New Orleans. You might say to me, well, that seems too simple. Maybe, but I'm telling you it works. So try that. The second is this, like I've kind of mentioned, don't be afraid to lead by example. I know that's tough. Listen, I have Facebook and I wish I could get rid of it, but my mom is a grandma and she loves pictures of her grandson. And I'll tell you this, if you're young and you don't have grandchildren, or you're not, or well, you don't have children, or you're not married yet, you're only going to be number one in mom's heart for one moment until you get married. And then once you have a child, it's all over. You're not important anymore. You are literally an avenue to get their grandchild to them. And so just go ahead and consider yourself third best on the list, because it'll never get any better. And as you have more children, that only grows greater. And those of you who are here and are grandparents are probably laughing or thinking, well, that's totally true. But it is what it is. So all that to say, I wish I could get rid of Facebook and delete it. I can't tell you how many times I've said that, because I'm grieved by what I see students putting on there, and the quizzes of like, which Twilight character are you? If you care enough to take a BuzzFeed quiz on which Twilight character on you, this might sting, don't get a grip. Like, seriously, that's not beneficial. If you're Edward or Bella or Jacob, I know that, that might change your world perspective. I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to go on a tangent. But don't be afraid to lead by example. The biggest difference today in students versus 5 years ago is the ability to hold a conversation. That is the biggest difference. I can't even, it just is what it is. Some parents have shared with me that they don't get to chat with their children. They don't get to have conversation because they talk like they text, short and inconsiderate. So set timers. When you have your students come into your ministry setting, whatever it is, encourage them to put their phones away. If they say, well, I use it for my Bible, go, bring your Bible, bring your journal, write these things down so they stick in here. Give me 45 minutes of your time that's uninterrupted. You'll be amazed at what can happen. Amazed. Plug the idea that as we sit together, we are in community together. Break them from the grasp of their culture just for a little while. Let them have that taste like we did in New Orleans. Let them have a taste of what it's like to not have to have the perfect picture on Instagram with the perfect caption. Guys, some of the biggest stressors that my students have is the perfect caption on their perfect picture. Seriously. I love them. I love these kids to death, man. I love them. They drive me crazy with the caption stuff. Because I just want to tell them, I'm like, you're beautiful. Here's how God made you. You don't have to worry about if you have the perfect statement behind it of how the sun reflects through the light and the hair of an angel and all these things. That doesn't matter. And the second is this. Consider removing some of the apps you have on your phone, and consider encouraging your students to remove some of those apps. And here's the biggie. Consider training your parents on the apps and the things that students have on their phone that are detrimental to them in their growth. A lot of parents are going to see something like Kick and go, oh, it sounds like a fun soccer game. No, like that's a video app that students are using to sext each other. Snapchat, oh, it's just a quick little picture. No, it's a dangerous, dangerous application. Train your students on why that's dangerous. Help them buck the culture that is messing with their reality and their identity and who Jesus says they are. Train them, lead them, let them know it's okay to be different and not have things like Snapchat. It'll change your life. And they'll thank you. They might not right away, but they will eventually. And then here's my favorite thing. This is just kind of a very practical thing, and I'll close here. When you go have meals with your students, take all their phones, stack them in the middle of the table, and whoever touches them has to buy. Or you wait till the bill is paid, then they can touch your phone again. You'll be amazed at the conversation and community that happens. And that even goes into teaching moments. And they say, well, why do you want us to do this? And you can say, listen, here's what I think these phones bring. Great communication. They destroy conversation, destroy community, and this is how. And you'll be amazed at some of the thoughts your students will give you. And although all of this has forced us to make some big choices and, to stand strong on some of these things, the battle is worth fighting. You guys are in the trenches because God has called you into those trenches. You're in leadership because God has brought you into leadership on how to love and train these students, how to stand for what is right, how to stand for what the Bible says, for who God says He is. God has brought you into a place so that you might train young individuals who are seeking truth, who are looking in culture, trying to find out what truth is, who they are, where all of this came from. God has placed you into their lives so that you could teach them those things and lead them in the way that He has shown you how to do. The battle is worth fighting. You are worth it to your students and to this world, and we thank you for what you do. We are losing the battle with culture now on a whole, but if we start at the grassroots, if we start with the people who are in students' lives, then we can win them back. And the battle is worth fighting. We love you guys. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for being here. And I hope and pray that in the future I'll be able to be with you and that we can converse and convene and commune in who God is and what He's done for me. Let me pray for you as we close this up. Pray with me. God, thank you that we have the opportunity through technology to share things, and that, Father, you have called us to this place where we can come and fight this battle for you, this righteous battle that we have. Lord, we are fighting for students' lives. We're fighting for students' hearts. Lord, hearts that you've already won, but still, God, the struggle is very, very real for a lot of these guys. It's not easy. It's not easy to love students. It's not easy. It's a calling, I'd say, to love students. And it's not easy to fight these battles that seemingly never go away. But Father, if we rely on you, if we seek your strength, God, we can do this. We can fight these things. We can see victory, God, in these things. And Lord, we thank you that you are God, that we are not, that you are in control, that we are not. And Father, I just pray for these leaders, God, that as they seek to love students, as they seek to honor you and glorify you, that you would make their ministry palpable, that they would see fruit, God, that it wouldn't have to be 5 years down the road, but that their students would come to know you in a deeper, more meaningful way, and that hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of students would be saved because of what you've done and what you've put into them. We thank you for that truth. We love you, Jesus. Thank you for the cross, for by it we have life, and it is in your name we pray. Amen. Have a great afternoon. Thank you so much for listening.